Dr. Altman, welcome back. It is always a pleasure to speak with you.
It's good to see you again.
Always up to new and interesting things. I wanted to hear a little bit about some of your work. One of your main focuses is on pharmacology or drugs.
That's exactly right.
What is the latest and greatest in your research?
We are very excited about looking at how we can use drugs in combination to get new effects that either drug alone wouldn't produce. And so there are scientific reasons to believe that if you hit a system not just at one point with one drug, but at 2 or 3 points, that you can get effects that would be very difficult to get with just one drug.
So the effects are not just additive, they're almost synergistic.
That is the exact word we use. It's synergistic or antagonistic, but not just adding up in the way you would expect if they were totally independent, but they're actually affecting each other's response.
I saw you give a kind of an interesting, like a TED-style talk on the idea that when doctors prescribe medications, and I can concur, the best way we know how to go about checking drug interactions is either using something like Google or kind of a pre-populated software such as Hippocrates that has drug interactions. What are the limits of that sort of technology?
So it's very limiting because it's looking again at one drug and its side effects, and then another drug and its side effects, and you say, well, if you're on the 2 drugs, maybe it'll just be the list of both of them. But we know that when you take 2 drugs, you might get the list that's separate, but there's a new list that emerges of side effects that are there because of the interaction. And that's just for 2 drugs. If you have 3, 4, 5 drugs, now you're looking at a potential explosion of side effects, but you're also, I like to be an optimist, you're also looking at a potential explosion of new good effects that were not really predicted from each drug alone.
Do you know how many drugs like an average American is on?
So people above 70, there's good statistics on this, and I'm doing it from memory, but it's something like 7 drugs.
That's a lot.
In my clinic, the last 2 patients I've seen, this is in the last couple of weeks, were on 22 drugs. It was a 40-year-old woman and a 70-year-old man, both on 22 drugs.
And often, you know, I'm in dermatology, so someone in my field will start prescribing drugs, and you don't talk to the cardiologist necessarily. You don't talk to the gastroenterologist, and the primary care doctor is tasked with kind of coordinating all the care, but they have so much on their plates.
Yes.
How can technology cut down on that burden?
So one of the real promises of the so-called medical big data, and we have to start being careful about using the big data, but one of the promises is we might be able to look at people who have constellations of disorders and say, you know what? We don't want to just use one drug per disorder, but we can actually get a cocktail that will treat the set of disorders optimally, separate from what you would do for each of them alone.
But our current medical system is pretty siloed, right? We train in different disciplines. So how do you propose to integrate that? Will the computer decide based on? Okay.
So I think it's going to be a machine learning approach. We're already beginning to do this with these large population data sets. For example, the UK Biobank is a university, United Kingdom in Britain, 500,000 people. They have the drugs that they're on, they have their diagnoses and a lot of phenotype data. And our group is already finding that when you have hypertension and blood pressure problems, hypertension and diabetes and let's say cardiovascular disease, that instead of prescribing a separate drug for each of those, you can actually look at it as an integrated syndrome, and you can, from the data, you can find groups of drugs that have been more successful than other groups of drugs. So now we just say, somebody with psoriasis as well as high blood pressure, maybe there's some interactions of those pathways where we can get a twofer in our treatments.
Of course, yeah, that's wonderful. Always exciting to talk to you.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Good to see you. And thank you for your ongoing work.
Thank you.